Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me for Pilates All Levels. My name is Audra, and today we're going to use a band and the ball. So if you're at home and you don't have a ball, that's okay. You can fold a pillow a couple times just to give yourself like a little bit of a prop. And if you don't have a band, you can just mimic the movements and allow just for easy range of motion. And Stephanie, I would actually keep that band, but also grab a blue one. Yeah, all right. We're gonna get started on our back, knees bent, feet flat, and you can bring the ball in between your knees. And we're going to start breathing and just kind of coming into our body. And always remember, if something doesn't feel right for you or your body, or is contraindicated, please don't do it. Feel free to modify. And as we just start to breathe, we're gonna have one hand on our sternum and one hand on our low ribs. And just inhale in through the nose and exhale through the mouth. And inhale in through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. And I want you to focus on your inhale and your exhale. And I do want you to have a nice deep breath. I want your exhale to be slower and longer than your inhale. So if you have a 4-count inhale, give me a 6-count exhale. And then Shannon, how are you feeling today? Okay, great. And a ball, yeah. Just one and a ball, yeah. Good. We'll take breaks as needed. Yeah. Last breath with the exhale being your focus. So try to maintain that, but now we're also going to make sure that we're keeping our breath kind of low. So I want you to, as you inhale, notice if your top hand is lifting towards your face, or if you can keep your ribs heavy and keep most of the expansion down low. So as we inhale, our pelvic floor and diaphragm should lower. Our transverse abdominis should expand. And while, yes, it's great to be able to use our secondary respiration muscles, we don't necessarily want to always use them. So as we are relaxed on the ground, we don't need them. Now go ahead, bring your hands to the floor next to you, palms up. And we're just gonna snow angel our arms overhead, feeling what our shoulder blades are doing. And we're going to snow angel our arms down. Snow angel them overhead. And just notice if there's kind of a pull or if you have to kind of readjust. Two more like this. And last one. Now keep the arms snow angeled overhead, interlace your hands, slide them behind your head, spiraling your elbows forward into your periphery. On your exhale, sink the bottom of the ribs down so you can curl your collarbones forward, leading with your armpits. And squeeze the ball just a little bit, and then lengthen all the way back down. We're trying to make sure that we're using our abs, possibly a little inner thigh, but not overworking our hip flexors. Good. So we're looking forward through our knees. Trying to maintain a relatively neutral pelvis here. So if we come into a deep imprint and really start trying to get hip flexion, try to tone it down 5%. Don't worry, we'll get a deeper range of motion soon. And last one. Hold it here. Bring your hands forward. Push them into an imaginary surface. Get a little bit higher. Still looking forward. You can brush your hands up and then slowly come down. Now, everybody's body is different and everybody's range of motion is different. So even when you curl forward more, we're just trying to activate more through your rectus. Stephanie, I want you to not come up as high. I want you to imagine, instead of pushing your hands forward, I want you to imagine that they're against something and you're pushing them into, yep. So it's still muscle activation, but not as much like forward. Good, good, Shannon. Yeah. And up. Last one. And then hands behind your head, hold. And just squeeze the ball or pillow a little bit, trying to find the whole of the inner thigh. So if you're only feeling like up near the groin region, you might choose to move the ball and your feet. So sometimes if my like pectineus and like other inner thigh muscles or hip flexors are a little overactive, if I bring my feet together and move the ball down a little, I can find a little bit more through my whole inner thigh. Good. And of course, if you need to bring your head down, you can. We just have 4, 3, letting your head be heavy in your hands, using your abs to curl forward. Last one, head comes down. Now just slide one hand down by your side. And as we curl forward, it's going to reach forward. And then slowly lower. Just a couple more like this. Last 2. And if it's not great on your shoulder to have your hand down, your palm can face in. You can even have your hand point up. It's up to you. Last one, hold. Now we're just going to rotate our opposite armpit and we're going to look at the hand and see if it moves and then back. So in an ideal world, because we're keeping our spine long and we're just rotating, the hand isn't moving. So if we're side bending, the hand might move and it's just an indicator, right? We have 3, still drawing down from that transversus abdominis. 2 more. How are those obliques feeling? They starting to talk a little? Good. And then other side. So snow angel, that arm overhead. Other side. So elbow slightly forward so we can reach that shoulder blade around the rib cage. And we come up and just notice what the hand is doing and back down. And again. And just start to notice as you're doing this, if like your hips are trying to help, right? If they are, maybe widen your feet or bring them together or just don't come up as high. Good. 2 more. Good. Shannon, nod your chin a little. Yeah, and then that's a better position for your neck, actually. So look forward more. Yeah. Good. And then hold this one and just rotate. Look at the hand, see what it does. And back. And rotate, look at your hand. Once again, if it's reaching, you could be side bending. Couple more. 3. 2 more. Last one. Come all the way down. Nice job, you guys. All right, now we're going to imprint versus neutral. So come into your neutral, and then on your exhale, we start to engage a little bit, sink the belly button down so much that the lower back melts to the ground. Your hip bones pull toward your face and your tailbone tucks. Now hold this for a second and notice if you're squeezing your glutes to get you there, right? If you are, imagine you have a piece of paper in between your cheeks and you want to drop it. And then rock back to center. Couple more. So start that engagement, lengthen your spine towards the ground. We are lengthening through our hips, not gripping. And then back. Couple more here. The ribs will also sink down towards the ground. Your chin will move a little bit, but if it's moving a lot, don't try quite as hard to get into the position. 2 more. And on this last one, we hold. Now, making sure your feet are pointing forward, push into the ground and peel your spine up into your first bridge. Now, first one never fully counts. We're just checking in. If you feel a lot of weight in your head or neck or tension in your back, instead of lifting from the armpits, sink the ribs down. Think about ribs down, butt up, and then melt and roll all the way. And again. But the other thing is even though our glutes should be engaged, to help us here, if we're over squeezing with the upper fibers, we can also compress our back a little bit. So think about lengthening through the front, pushing in with your feet. You can even push in with your hands to get a little tricep. And then roll. 2 more. Pressing down. And melt. Last one. Initiating from your breath, initiating from your abs, pressing into your feet, peeling up, and hold for a second. Now just let one hip start to point towards the ground a little bit without arching, and then press into the floor, let that hip lift. Other side. So it's not about getting the hip all the way to the ground. And once again, we're trying to make sure that we're not arching our back here. We're just getting a little baby bit of rotation. So the rib is still sinking down. And then we press in with that foot. Good. Couple more. Making sure you're staying at a range that feels good for you and your back. Last set. Come back to center and then melt and roll. Now go ahead, sway your knees to one side. Think about that hip lengthening away from your face. Exhale, drag it back from your rib cage. Other side. Exhale. One more each side. and back. Now, if this is where you are, amazing. If you're like, I'd like a little bit more challenge, please float your legs to tabletop. Squeeze your inner thighs together a little bit like you're trying to pop a balloon. Heels can come together too. Arms in a T or goal post. Ribs stay closed. Lift one hip. Let the other hip lower a little. And then exhale. Think about that rib cage dropping in order to bring you back. And then other side. So the reason we think about the rib cage dropping is if we just kind of move the knees, a lot of times when we come back, we're using our back to drag us back as opposed to our obliques, which isn't always bad. Sometimes we need that strategy. But if that's a strategy we use a lot, we want to make sure that we can use the opposite strategy, right? So we're sinking the ribs back, we're squeezing in with the opposite inner thigh. So when you go to the left, you're sinking your right rib cage down, squeezing your left inner thigh. One more each direction. And you can always keep your feet on the floor if you like. Come back to center. Now we have options here. We're going to keep squeezing and just think about that imprint, okay? So you can press your hands into the ground, and on your exhale, we imprint the spine, maybe the hips curl up, and then we come back to center. Now, if legs and tabletop isn't for you today, and you're like, well, imprint is a little too easy, but for some reason this doesn't feel great on my back, try one leg in tabletop, right? You still think about the imprint, but you have a little bit more stability and support. And then you can try the other side, where you have a little bit more stability and support, right? So listen to your body, see what its needs are. Now, as you do this, if you notice that your shoulders are really rotating internally, bring your palms to face each other. And then think about your collarbones being wide, sinking the ribs down. If you push into your hands, think of it being from your triceps as opposed to your shoulders. Better. Worry less about getting your hips up and just more about a curl, just a little tiny imprint. There you go. Better. And then use your breath more too. Yep. Good, good. Two more. And everybody's spine shape is a little different, right? So depending on where yours naturally goes, this might be pretty easy or it might be pretty hard. Now we're going to interlace our hands behind our head, curl forward, same thing. Now this might actually be easier if your thoracic spine is used to rounding. It might also be harder. But once again, it's not about a huge range of motion. You can still use one foot on the floor to get a little bit of that support and range, right? No problem. If you need your head down, bring your head down. And we have two more here. Curl. Last one. And come back to center, feet come down. We're going to bring our hips up and bring them on top of the ball. So press into the floor, lift your hips, and just bring the ball underneath your sacrum, that triangular bone in between your cheeks. Now just kind of move a little bit from side to side until you can center yourself and just feel evenly weighted from side to side, making sure that we're not arching, but you also don't have to be in a huge imprint. So as neutral as you can get. On your exhale, draw your ribs towards your belly button and just think about your lower abs sinking down a little bit. So you make a tiny bit more connection with the ball. Yeah. And again, inhale, exhale. Now on your next exhale, float one leg to tabletop, allowing that thigh bone to sink in the socket. And then other side, step it down, slowly lowering it. You're defying gravity. Press down into the foot, exhale, ribs, lower abs. Now, couple things. We are gently being the operative word, sinking into the ball a little bit to get more core activation. If you go into a position that feels bad on your back, that's not where we're going, right? It's just about making a tiny bit more connection to the low abs. Now, if your hip flexors love to help, especially just on one side, you can always use the band to give you a little bit of assist, right? Yeah. I see that's all of us. Okay, well then we're going for it. So think about pushing in with the foot that's on the floor, right? So you're pushing into the floor, you're drawing your belly button down, and then the band is just letting that thigh fold. And then on the way away, you're actually going to push into the band a little bit with your hamstring. And then just let it fold. The band is doing the work. Good. Huh? It works, yeah. Couple more on this side, and then we can go to the other side. And if for some reason it's not comfortable, you don't have to. And then other side. And so maybe the other side doesn't need the assist, which is great. Yeah. So you're still pressing in with that other foot. You can still press in with that hamstring. Still trying to find that nice, gentle ab activation, right? Good, couple more. And then we get to add on. So if it's appropriate for your body, we're going to bring our legs to tabletop. If it's not, you can continue to do marching, okay? Otherwise, both legs can come to tabletop, squeeze them together, and we tap one toe down. Exhale, switch your legs like two ships passing in the night. Right? And if that feels easy and you feel freedom in your hip joint, you can extend the leg away from you rather than tapping it. However, if possible, I want you to try to bypass the knee. What? So a lot of times we'll feel fearful going into a range, like either we can't stabilize it, and so we immediately just go to a straight leg position and cut our range, which is no problem. But what I'd like us to try to do here is push away so we can get a little length through the hip joint. And maybe that means the knee doesn't straighten. right? And that's okay. So we're trying to find core, a little bit of length through the hip joint. Yeah. And don't worry about if the knee straightens or not. Good. 2 more like this. And then we can bring both legs tabletop. Once again, this is an advancement. If tapping is where you are, keep tapping. Otherwise, we squeeze our feet together, let both toes point towards the ground, and then exhale, float them back up. So Shannon, you have a very long lever. So if it's too much, bring your knees like, or your heels closer towards your hips, and just think about the knees moving. Yeah, good. And then draw the belly button in. Does that feel okay? Great. And that goes for anybody, regardless of the length of their lever, but especially if you have longer limbs, right? The force required to stabilize is just going to be more, right? So you can always cut the length of the lever by keeping your heels closer towards your hips. We have 3. Try to just use your breath to stabilize. 2 more. Last 1. And then we can lift our hips off the prop and come down. Go ahead and grab the band and extend one leg to the sky. And we're going to put the band across our foot. And then I'm going to cross it. Okay. So I have really excitable hip flexors. So I am kind of gripping up on my band and applying a little bit more downward force to try to get my thigh bone to suction cup in the socket. You might not need that, and that's okay. And we're just gonna take the foot across the body in a range that feels good, and then take the foot out to the side in a range that feels good. We're not trying to drop it to its passive end range. We're trying to find a more active end range, right? So if you're like, okay, I've got this, and then you just kind of go into your end range, see if you can use your inner thigh to lift out of it a tiny bit. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe control it out to the side a little easier. And back. Good. Last one. And then come back to center. Now you're just going to push the foot into the band and away from you, and then let it fold in the socket. If for any reason this doesn't feel okay, same rules apply. You don't have to do it. Go into a range that works for you. So maybe your hamstring towards the knee is really tight, bend your knee, right? That's okay. For me, it's my calf. Like my calf starts going like crazy. We have 3. Good. 2, still letting the band help the thigh bone. Last one. And then we're going to take the foot across, press it down, out to the side, and up. So it's kind of like a circle, but we're not cutting the edges off. So I guess it's more like a square, right? And so the reason we're starting with a square shape as opposed to a circular shape is sometimes if we feel hopping or clicking in the circular shape, we don't always in the square shape. And then of course, if you want to try to trim the edges off and turn it into a circle, you can. That's where my body is like, well, we're gonna stick with the square. And then we go to the other side, other direction. So out, down, across, up. And maybe this is the direction that feels better. Maybe the other direction did. Just kind of check in, make sure everything is feeling great. And then you can cut the edges off if you want. We have 4, 3, 2 more. Trying to keep that other hip relatively weighted. And 1. Now, before we do the other side, we're just going to slide that foot in, bring the feet together, and then bend the knees, bring the feet to the floor. Now go ahead, and you might need less tension on the band. You might need more. We're going to find out together. So slide your elbows out to about a goalpost, making sure that you're using your shoulder and not your neck. And then you can slide the elbows in. Think about widening through your collarbones. Elbows point towards the opposing wall. Good. And then back. So with Shannon, that looks great. Rev your, which one? Your right wrist, like a little bit of a motor. Yeah. Is that a little bit more work in the shoulder? Yeah. We're just going up and down with the elbows. Yeah, and the hands come along for the ride. Like a little delt lift, like a delt fly, yeah. Good. 2 more. Last one, hold it out. Think about flattening your shoulder blades. And we're just going to rotate so our knuckles maybe get to the ground. And then slowly resist the band as you come back, and then rotate again. Now your elbows can be low. You can also kind of grab more grip on the band if you want, right? It is okay to allow your shoulders to come into internal rotation. We do need internal rotation. We just don't want to go into a range that feels bad or where our form is compromised, right? So for example, that pec minor loves to bring the shoulder up and forward. So a lot of times if we're doing internal rotation, that pec minor is actually going to try to help us. So if you notice it, bring the shoulder down, shoulder blade flat on the ground, and just keep it in a range where there aren't the compensations. We have 3 more. And 2. Last one, hold. Now, we're just going to push one arm overhead if that feels appropriate, and then bring it down, and then other side. So we're thinking of opening that armpit. Maybe the knuckles stay on the ground, maybe they don't, right? Maybe your range of motion overhead is better floating, and that's okay. Good. Keeping those wrists nice and strong. We used the rotator cuff to rotate, and then we're actually using it now to help keep that arm suction cupped in the socket as we reach overhead. 1 more each side. Go ahead, bring your legs to your elevated position so you can easily bring the other leg out, and then this leg up. Now, if you extend the other leg, great. If that's too much, keep it bent, it's fine. And we're just going to tick-tock the leg across our body. Once again, we're finding out where our range of motion really is, right? So if the leg falls out and our hip lifts, bring that hip down. Maybe the leg doesn't really go out as far, right? Using your breath if you need to. Good. Good. Couple more. Just seeing where you are today. And then back to center. You can push that foot away from you and then let the band help it lift. If your knee needs to bend, no problem. If you can't go very far, fine. Yeah, your range of motion might look different than mine, and that's great. Good. We have just a couple more. And 2. Last one. And then we get to do our little squares. So bring it across, down, out, up. Good. And maybe you like to cut the edges off and have it be a circle. Fantastic. Good. A couple more this direction, and then we get to do the other direction. Using the band for assistance and resistance, right? So when you push the foot away, think about that hamstring helping you, that glute helping you, and then the band helps you, inner thigh, and then other direction when you're ready. Out, down, across. So the band are just like a couple extra muscles that help tell your nervous system what we're doing. Good. Couple more. And 2. Last one. We're going to do some roll-ups. And depending on your body, you can use the band to help. So I'm going to use the band today. We're going to bring the feet down and extend them out. Now, inhale, look towards your feet, and then exhale, you can use your biceps to help if you want. Good. And then we restack. So lift your ribs, yeah, and we roll all the way down, and just notice what your feet need to do, right? So maybe feet together works for you, maybe feet apart is where you are today. And then restack. So for example, with me, I can do most of it with feet together, but there are certain parts where when I get there, my feet have to separate or I get stuck, right? Your knees are together. Well, you're hyperextending a little bit. Yeah. So think less about like bending your knees and more about just activating your quads. Yeah. Good. It is a lot harder. Good. I look great though. Look good. Looking good, you guys. Use your breath. 2 more. And 1 more. Like this. Good. Now go ahead and restack, and you have options. You can use the ball behind you or not. We're going to think about our shoulder blades. So if you have trouble finding it with the band, try it without first. We're going to widen through our collarbones, keep the ribs down, bend the elbows down and back. So when we're here, if our elbows are pointing back and our shoulders are coming forward, try to widen through the collarbones and squeeze the bottom tips of our shoulder blades. Good. Let the hands come forward. We're just doing a couple more rows. Now, if sitting upright like this does not feel great, feel free to bend your knees, please. Always, always. Good. 2 more. Good. Last one. Now, maybe this is where you stay. Maybe you curl and roll back. And then try to keep that ab activation as the arms come back. Now, what happens if you're like, I got this? Oh, I don't got this. Okay, breathe, try again. You could also just do one arm at a time and then try again. You can always bend the knees if that's needed. We have 3. Good. 2 more. Hold this last one. Now just let one arm come forward and oh, rotation just naturally occurs. Yes, it does. Bring it back, other side. Now, what happens if you're like, this doesn't feel great in my back? You can always bend the knees, have the ball behind you. Okay. You can also, instead of keeping both arms back and bringing one, you can have them forward and just think about pulling. Right? It's a little easier, gives a little bit more support. Good. 2. Last set. And then come all the way forward and restack. Nice job, you guys. Come onto your knees. We have one more arm move with the band. Now, we're gonna bring it pretty tight against us. Widen through your collarbones. Think about those knuckles pressing down, and then squeeze the back of your arm to press back and hold. And then press back and hold. So we're keeping our collarbones gently elevated, finding our triceps. Yeah, if your palms are back, that's not bad, but if they can face each other, even better. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Good. And they don't have to go out, just straight back. Yeah, good. Good. You guys have strong triceps. 2 more. Now, if you want, you can pitch forward, bend your elbows, and then reach back for your knuckles. Bend and reach. The band might come away a little, that's okay. Good. 4, 3. It's okay to send your hips back a little as well, even more towards your feet. Yeah, there you go. Is that easier on your back? Good. 2, good. Last one, come on up, get rid of the band. We're coming onto all fours. Pressing into the floor. Just find your abdominals here and slide one foot out. Pushing it into the ground, finding that little bit of ankle dorsiflexion, so a flexed foot as opposed to a pointed foot, and then fold it in. Now, as you do this, it's not so much that you're trying to push your foot away from your back, so that heel to glute are connecting. Okay. Now, if this is where you are, this is where you stay. If you would like to come into a plank, we're coming into a plank. If you're like, well, I want to be in a knee plank, that's great. Same rules apply. We're still lifting our ribs towards the sky, pushing the floor away. And if you're in a full plank, you have the option of bending a knee and bringing it in. Yep, if you're in a knee plank, you have the option of sliding a foot away, right? Good. We have 4, 3. Trying to keep those hips nice and level. Last set. knees down, press yourselves into your rest position. Go ahead, roll out your wrists, hands up and over to one side, press your hips away. And then other side. We're going to come on to our side today. And you can use the ball as a pillow. And you have the option of using the band to help you connect a little bit more with your glutes. If you're like, I'm done with the band, that's fine. Be done with the band, no problem. If you're using it, put it around the top part of your foot. And then I personally like to kind of crisscross it. And Stephanie, if you're using a band, this is a blue band kind of moment. Yeah, good. And then you can come on to your pillow. Now, I like to kind of use my bottom arm to help stabilize because I can then press in to the floor with my rotator cuff. We're gonna unwind our hips, widen through your sits bones, lift your knee and foot, and then push into the band, reaching so far away that your bottom ribs lift. And then let the band fold. Good. Yeah. And reach. Good. And we're trying to find that little bit of texture through the movement. So you could also just imagine that you're pushing your foot into like a chair and sliding it across the room. Good. Now, once again, I would like you to straighten your knee, but I do want you to start by bypassing it, right? So you're pushing into your foot, your glute is working, you're coming into the tiniest little bit of hip extension, and then your knee extends. Good. Good. Two more here. Letting that thigh bone just fold freely. Last one, press and hold. Now relax that foot. We're going to paintbrush it up a wall and squeegee it down. Good. Paintbrush it up. Good. And squeegee it down. Shannon, as your foot comes up, it just looks like it's trying to come forward a little. Yeah, see if that feels just a little bit more in the glute. Does that feel okay? Yeah, I don't know if I feel it. Roll your top hip bone forward. Externally rotate your thigh bone 1 millimeter. Yeah, and push the foot away from you rather than high. Yeah, do you feel that a little bit more? Yeah. Great, yes. Good. Couple more. Good. Your foot can also drag back slightly, or you can rotate your top hip bone forward slightly, or both. Yeah. Last one, and we do tiny circles. Think about dragging the foot back. Now, if this band is too close, you can always move it away. You can always get rid of it. You can always extend. Whatever feels best for you and your body is what I'd like you to do today. 3, 2, and reverse. For 5. Good. How's that side feeling? So good? Yeah. And drag it back and hold. And all we're gonna do is imagine pushing that foot into a wall back behind us, trying to open through the hip for 4, 3, 2, other side, my friends. Yeah. Yeah, it gives just a little bit of feedback. All right. So I'm just gonna apparently be real awkward trying to get into position. Okay, there we go. All right, so once again, I like to cross so my foot feels stable, but it's up to you. And then I use my bottom hand and press against the floor with that knuckle, but you can do whatever you need to feel successful. Widen through your sits bones, float that leg up, push the foot away. If you can, try to bypass the knee to start. Good. Now, one reason I'm playing real fast and loose with hand placement and the band is one, maybe the length of your band is different than mine, right? Maybe it's shorter or you're proportionately taller, in which case you might need the band to be longer. Maybe you have a shoulder issue and it doesn't feel good to be in this position, right? So listen to what your body's needs are. Good. Still trying to bypass the knee a little bit. So Stephanie, hold there. Lift your knee a fraction. Yeah. Now keep the knee above the band and kind of dangle your foot. Yeah. Good, that was better. Yeah, that's where we're going. Couple more. Don't roll back. Reach your hip bone towards me more. There. Yeah. And then think about that knee being up just a little bit. Yeah. It is a lot of work. And then we hold this last one out. Yeah. And then paintbrush the foot up a little, squeegeeing it down. Letting the foot relax on the way up. Good. Nice job, you guys. Just a few more. Pushing the foot towards the opposite wall rather than towards the sky, right? You're reaching it away. 2. Last one like this. And then we get to do circles, so tiny little circles. Once again, as we're circling, if you need the band forward, down, it's up to you. Think about that thigh bone just gently stirring in the socket for 4, 3, 2, reverse. Two more. And then come back to center. I'm just going to press that heel into an imaginary surface. For 5 and 4, 3, 2, last one. Go ahead, bend the knee. We're coming onto our stomach for a second. Now go ahead and just shift your hips from side to side a little bit, making sure that your back is nice and relaxed. Now just squeeze one glute and think about that foot having like 1 pound less, and then relax. Other side, squeeze. It's even less about floating that foot up and more about allowing that muscle to move the bones if it chooses to. Making sure that our back stays soft and relaxed, right? So maybe if your back is overactive or it's just a lot of work to lift the leg, you just imagine lifting it as opposed to making it work. Right. One more each side. And then bring your hands kind of in front of you and kind of to the side. Shoulder blades draw down your back. You're actually going to push your hands and elbows into the ground to look forward a little bit. Yeah, good. Now, if it's appropriate for your back, and only if it's appropriate, you can start to straighten your arms a little bit. Yeah, and then come back. Brush your elbows down to the ground, shoulders out of the ears. And you can press into your hands. And then if it's appropriate, you straighten your arms. How do you know if it's not appropriate? Well, one, it doesn't feel good, right? This should be a very easy, passive extension. For example, if my hands are too close, even though I have short arms, I'm a little extension intolerant, and I wind up going into this position because this doesn't feel good. So I bring my hands forward. So if you are a little extension intolerant, it's okay to keep the range small, right? Maybe this is where you are instead of here. Last one. And then come back down. Bring your hands in front of you, suction cupping them to the ground. Think about dragging your armpits down. And then I like to flip my palms to face each other. You can do that, or you can keep your hands on the ground. Press down with your left hand. Float that left foot, maybe that right arm. Press the right arm down, float the right foot, and maybe the left arm. Think about the shoulder blade tucking under and drawing down slightly, as opposed to just lifting the hand, right? Couple more. And 2. Last one. Press yourselves into your rest position. Hands up and over to one side. Press your hips away. And then other side. Now we're getting a little bit of thoracic rotation. I'm going to be in this pill bug shape. If that is okay for your knees and hips and back, great. If it's not, you can always come into a quadruped. We're just going to bring one arm to our shoulder or the back of our neck, widen through the collarbones, and rotate. Now, if that feels good, you can always straighten the arm to deepen the rotation. If that's not where you are today, keep it small. Good. We have 3. Trying to keep the rotation primarily in the rib cage. Yes, the whole spine will respond. But that rib cage rotation is really important. Other side. And notice if one side feels different than the other. Now, while the elbow is going to the side and is brushing up, the elbow is brushing up because the rib cage is rotating. It's not doing it on its own and trying to lead the rib cage, right? It's part of the movement, but it's not driving the movement. We have 2 more. Last one. And come all the way to standing. It wouldn't be a class without a hot second of balance work. So go ahead and just bring one foot in front of the other as if you're on a tightrope. No problem. Just notice what your body's doing. Now, close your eyes and see what your body says. If you feel really wobbly, your first line of defense is opening your eyes, right? You can also touch a stable surface, and that just tells your body that you're safe, right? Now, standing here with your eyes closed, it's really easy. Fantastic. You can start. Take one ear to your shoulder, then head down, ear to your other shoulder. So you're making a little head circle. And maybe, like me, eyes closed standing is pretty easy. Head circle, eyes closed is impossible. So I'm doing head circle, eyes open, and it's still a challenge. And then we get to do the other side. Might surprise you, maybe this is going to be the easy side. Maybe not. So just try eyes closed. If you feel that kind of vibrating in your feet and your ankles, that's fine. It's called noise. It's your proprioceptors figuring out where they are in space. So if you're really struggling with that, take your hands, place them on the back of your neck, rub the back of your neck, and then see if that helps your body know where it is in space a little bit more. And then you can try the head circles. They don't have to be fast, right? I have to pause, let my body recalibrate, right? One more set. And come back to center. Nice job. Bring your palms to the sky, open your collarbones, and relax and give yourselves a round of applause. Nice job. Thank you so much for joining me today.